Okay, this is the third lecture on Jacob. Next, Jacob flees again. In Genesis 34, we are told that Dinah, remember she's the daughter of the first wife Leah, Dinah goes out to visit the women of the land, we are told. So these would be the Hivite, or generally speaking, Canaanite women of Shechem, where Jacob has settled. And it's a little confusing here that Shechem is also the name of Hamor, the Hivite's son. So let's unpack this. Hamor is the local ruler, the man from whom Jacob purchased land. So it seems his son is named after the city, or some such. Shechem, the son, seizes Dinah and lies with her, clearly meaning that he had sex with her. He defiled her, according to the King James Version. Now, there's a strong suggestion that Dinah was raped, but her so-called defilement, regardless of how consensual it was or was not, would be very, very bad business either way. They were not married, and Shechem is a foreigner, so his behavior is bound to land badly with Jacob and his family. As a caveat, Shechem has fallen in love with Dinah and asked his father, Hamor, to arrange a marriage with her. In this narrative, no one asks Dinah how she feels, so we don't get any more details about her reported abduction. Jacob hears what happens, but remains silent about the matter until his sons return from the fields. Then the sons learn about what happened. Hamor visits Jacob to propose an intermarriage and an alliance between the families. He suggests that Jacob's clan should remain settled and trade and share the land with Hamor's people. Shechem, the son, again insists that he loves Dinah and offers any gift required to make her his wife. Genesis does not record Jacob's response to this proposal. Dinah's brothers, especially Simeon and Levi, natural sons of Leah and therefore full brothers, remain furious about the matter, but they hide it. The sons of Jacob, oddly not Jacob himself, answer deceitfully. The deceit runs in the family. They pretend to agree to Hamor's proposal for marriage on one condition. This condition, which may seem a little extreme and bizarre to us, is that every male in the city must be circumcised, so that they may all become one people. But in this we will consent unto you, if ye be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. Now that's what Hamor and presumably Shechem, the son, are told. Get circumcised and we'll all be fine. Hamor and son Shechem, somewhat surprisingly, if you ask me, agree and persuade the men of their city to go through with this painful and scary procedure that these foreigners to them will conduct themselves. They seem to know how to do it. The men of Shechem agree to be circumcised, which is also surprising. The idea, it seems, was that all of this pain would settle the matter and bring about an alliance that would usher forward mutual abundance. The mass circumcision takes place, but turns out to be a ruse. On the third day, when the men are still weak from the procedure, Dinah's brothers, Simeon and Levi, attack the city. These two, according to Genesis, kill all the males, including Hamor and Shechem, and they rescue Dinah from Shechem's house. Now, this seems an unbalanced response to the act of one man. There's no indication that any of the men of the town had anything to do with Dinah's defilement, but nevertheless they are murdered even after they consented to circumcision. We are told that Jacob's other sons join in afterwards, plundering the city, taking flocks, herds, wealth, and abducting the women and children as servants. And we can use our imagination to picture how they went about doing this because Genesis offers no more details. When Jacob, who's been silent throughout, hears of this, he rebukes Simeon and Levi. Ye have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land. I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me. So Jacob fears retaliation from the neighboring Canaanites, as well he should. Simeon and Levi replied defiantly, should we deal with our sister as a harlot? Jacob's answer is not stated. So I'll answer for him according to my sense of right and wrong. No, your sister should not be treated as a harlot, and neither should you and your brothers murder the men of the city and plunder it because of the act of one man. That's how I feel. In Genesis 35, God commands Jacob to return to Bethel. Arise, and go to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God, that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau. Jacob is already eager to flee from Shechem for fear of Canaanite revenge, so this is presumably an easy command to obey. It's widely thought that Bethel corresponds roughly to the modern town of Bethel, located about 30 kilometers, maybe 20 miles south of Shechem, give or take, and north of modern Jerusalem and Bethlehem, which are very close together. We're not told precisely where Jacob is leaving from or what route he takes. What we do know is that he's fleeing, but not fleeing very far. The chapter makes clear that God is present and near, and that Jacob and his retinue remain under God's direct protection. Again, as a reminder, Bethel, before it was referred to as Luz, Bethel is becoming more and more important in Genesis. We know that Abraham built an altar there, as he also did in Shechem. And this is where Jacob erected a pillar in Bethel, after his vision of the ladder to heaven. Jacob tells members of his household to put away foreign gods. I guess these are the types of household gods that Rachel stole from Laban. These symbols of worship, it seems, including earrings. These details, these things, show the continuing influence of other religions and religious practices, I think. Members of Jacob's household are also told to wash and change garments. These details are included probably to show that Jacob is trying to purify his household in the eyes of Jacob's God. Jacob buries the collected idols and earrings under an oak near Shechem, perhaps symbolizing the death of these symbols of worship. He also may be trying to put behind the injustices of the massacre at Shechem. As Jacob's family travels to Bethel, the Bible says the terror of God was upon the cities. The terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. This is not stipulated exactly what terrors God puts on these cities. We know from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah that God is capable of visiting terrible things on cities. This terror protects Jacob from revenge by neighboring Canaanites, and this ends the Shechem debacle in the short term, but not the memory of the massacre in the long term. Many innocents in and beyond Shechem were killed and terrorized, but Jacob and his retinue move ahead. Jacob is no longer fleeing now that he is clearly going with God, but he is still headed south. When they reach Bethel, Jacob adds an upgrade to the pillar he once placed there and builds a proper altar, a second altar after Abraham's initial altar. We are told, kind of out of the blue and with too little explanation, that Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, dies. This begs the question of why is it that Jacob's mother's nurse is traveling with Jacob? And why is she there when she dies? It could be that Deborah left Isaac's and Rebekah's household to join Jacob's household because her mistress Rebekah had died. But Rebekah's death is not mentioned here. Jacob was a mama's boy, so it seems strange that Rebekah's death does not figure into this story. We're told that Deborah is buried, like the idols and the earrings, beneath an oak tree, wherever it was she died. So next, God appears to Jacob, reconfirming the promises that he first made at Bethel when Jacob was first there. And God said unto him, Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. And God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed after thee will I give the land. And God went up from him in the place where he talked with him. So God reaffirms Jacob's new name, Israel. God reinforces the covenant that he made with Abraham, promising that Abraham and now Jacob's descendants will become a nation and a company of nations, and that kings will come from Jacob. The promise of rights to the land is restated. Jacob sets up a stone pillar, as he did before, pulls a drink offering and oil, and names the place Bethel once again. And this is a bit strange. The place was already named Bethel, but this, it seems, is either typical biblical repetition or an effort to reaffirm Jacob's promise to honor God on the condition that God protects him. And then we are told that Jacob leaves Bethel, but we are not told for what reason. However, I think the narrative assumes that we've caught on to something by now. Jacob's family line is ultimately rooted in Hebron, or the plain of Mamre, that area. Hebron, or the plains of Mamre, is where Abraham and Sarah are buried, and they ended up there ultimately after their travels. It is assumed, I think, that Jacob gathers from God that he is to return home, so to speak, after his own travels. Why he first tried to settle in Shechem is something that we can only speculate about. Abraham built his first altar in Shechem, which may explain Jacob's interest in the area as a foundational holy site. Maybe also he wanted to keep some distance from Isaac and Esau, and who both lived in two separate places, but not so far from the southern direction Jacob is now going. He's getting closer to them, and he's going down below Jerusalem. But he does this would be modern Jerusalem, not in Genesis. But he does not have to travel very far again. First, he heads to Bethlehem, or Ephrath. So he leaves Bethel en route with what we can presume is a large caravan toward Bethlehem. On the way, Rachel goes into hard labor. We have not been told she was pregnant, but now we know. The midwife tells her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And she does, but she dies while giving birth to Benjamin, number 12 of the sons of Jacob. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. Jacob buries Rachel on the road to Bethlehem and sets up a pillar on her grave. And just like that, the two women Jacob was closest to have died. His mother, we are to assume, and his true love. We're not given much detail, and the impression we get is that Rachel's death does not slow Jacob up much, although he does stop for a bit at the Tower of Edar near Bethlehem. Perhaps he stopped there to mourn Rachel's death. We're not told. But we do hear about something else that has gone wrong. Jacob's oldest son has had some trouble keeping his robe on. And it came to pass, when Israel dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard it. We're given no detail or reaction here, but later Jacob will remember this transgression and strip Reuben of his birthright. This chapter is my least favorite chapter in Genesis so far. It flies through major events with no explanation. Remember that the chapter on the servant heading north to find a wife for Isaac was comparatively rich in detail. Reading this, or sometimes upon reading this in our time, some are disturbed. I am disturbed by the fact that so many were bound to families as slaves or indentured servants, like Bilhah, who had nothing close to human rights. Others are fine with the thought that things were different hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when these systems of servitude were seen as necessary to maintain order, continuity, and human survival. I do not hold the Bible responsible for telling it like it was, but one verse on Reuben's transgression seems flippant and careless. He had sex with his father's concubine. Shouldn't there be more to this story? This act in this ancient tribal society is an affront to his father's authority, and the sons he sires from an approved concubine will carry the blessing of the covenant. The line of Jacob and his oldest son could become extremely confused should Bilhah have a son by Reuben. To make matters even worse, Bilhah is the mother of two of Reuben's half-brothers. We already know that Jacob's sons are an unruly bunch, and Reuben has now created what could be, but never is, an explosive situation among the brothers. I've just spent a lot of time trying to get our heads around this incredible incident, but the text just says that Jacob heard about what happened, and that's it. There is seemingly no immediate punishment. We hear nothing about how the sons of Bilhah felt about the matter. Just one verse on a major disclosure. The next verse, out of nowhere, begins a repetition of facts we already know. It goes through a summary of the list of the 12 sons of Jacob, grouped by their mothers. These names are not easy to remember when you first come across them. And in the context of the Old Testament, these details really do deserve repetition. But here they seem just stuck in, just when we want to know more about Reuben and his stepmother, or whatever she is, step-concubine mother, I'm not sure. In defense of the narrative, though, the birth of Benjamin to Rachel, muddled by other big undertreated events in this chapter, the death of Rebekah and all of that, marks the completion of the sons whose progeny would become the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob finally makes it home to Hebron, Mamre, where his aged father, Isaac, still lives. What? Okay, wait. Several chapters ago, we left Isaac as an old, semi-blind man doling out his last will and testament to the wrong son, on his deathbed, presumably. Now, here, over 20 years later, we find out that Isaac, alas, is still alive. What was he doing all that time? We don't know. The text indicates that Jacob was with Isaac again before Isaac dies. Then Isaac dies, and we are told that at the age of 180 years old, Isaac gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people, being old and full of days, and his son Esau and Jacob buried him. So the brothers Esau and Jacob bury Isaac, just as the half-brothers Ishmael and Isaac buried Abraham. The text does not stipulate where at this point, but we will learn later that Isaac and Rebekah were buried at the cave of Machpelah, later called the Cave of the Patriarchs. Then it's there in Hebron. Also, we'll find out later in Genesis that Jacob and Leah are to be buried there, too. Rachel didn't make it, and Leah gets her wish to be with Jacob in death. In the next lecture, we will leave the unruly narrative of Genesis chapter 35 behind, an unruly chapter. And we're going to head towards some stronger storytelling. We will explore the well-known tale of Joseph and his jealous and unruly brothers.